Hello, my name is Harrison Charlton, and I am a freshman at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'd like to welcome you to this podcast. The whole purpose of this is basically it's a project for English. So if it doesn't sound the best, please excuse that. Um, anyway, so basically I'm going to be talking about probably one of the most controversial topics in the entire United States, and it's gun control. And the reason is I feel like a lot of students nowadays, they don't get to have their voice heard, so to speak. But I'll also be explaining like students in high school, how they feel like they're almost trapped in a prison almost. So first things first, I did an interview with a buddy of mine, which you'll hear later on in the podcast. And we have a civil discussion about gun control and how some students feel not really oppressed, but effectively oppressed. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, I have about 5 points here to go over. Two of which I will be going over in the actual interview with my friend. But anyway, so my first point is, what is gun control? So just to give a little background, the talk about gun control has been sparked by the large share of high schoolers, high school students, that not haven't been under scrutiny, but they feel scared that, say, a random stranger or one of their old classmates, for whatever reason, might come back and shoot their school up. And they're just afraid of that. So there's been a lot of talk about policies to be put in place on gun control, on taking guns away completely. But the thing is, and I have this as one of my points as well, gun control can't really be taken. You can't really take away guns because of the Second Amendment, which basically is the right to bear arms. But you can limit as to what the population has. Now, personal beliefs, I believe that there should be limits on guns, but they shouldn't take them away. So yeah, it's a big debate right now. But let's see what I have on here. So yeah, many school districts and schools have forced students to walk through metal detectors or even have police on campus during school hours. And these students, even though they're calling for gun control, it makes them feel like they're in a prison. They don't feel, you have all these armed guards on campus at all times. You have to walk through metal detectors in some schools. I know at my previous high school, they have started putting up not really a decorative fence, but effectively a decorative fence around campus to, one, limit the amount of entrances that, say, a possible threat may have, but also as a decorative thing. But anyway, they also have started locking doors. Nobody allowed, so to even get in the building, you have to go through the front office. If you're a student, you can get in wherever for a certain amount of time. And it's like before school and after school when it lets out. But in between those hours, all the doors are locked. You can't get in unless you have a teacher with you, and the only way in is through one of two doors. So the first door is obviously a connecting door between our buildings that we have, but also the other option is through the front office. But to even get in the front office, you have to buzz in and talk to the front office, the front desk, and explain to them what's going on, and then you have to show a picture of your identification. So it's very secure, and these students feel as if they are being oppressed. Now, personally, to stop this, I believe that police officers should be on campus, but they shouldn't be hired through the city. I feel like they should be hired almost through a school district or the actual city by itself. So, like, say, for instance, the city has, say, for instance, the city has got a campus, and on this campus they have, say it's a high school campus, for instance, there should be at least 1 to 3, depending on the size of the school, based on student population, 1 to 3 police officers on campus at all times during school hours. So that includes before school, before anybody's there, and after. Because this eliminates the threat. Well, it doesn't really completely eliminate the threat, but you have police on campus and they can respond quickly if there's an issue. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play this interview and let you listen to what me and my friend had to say about these questions that I asked him, and I'll pick back up after. Today I'm with Casey Shepard. He's a student at the University of Southern Miss, and he's from Laurel, Mississippi. He's neutral on the gun control debate and believes that there are some things that should be put in place and some things that shouldn't be. Casey, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, so yeah, let's get started. So for instance, like I just said, there's a lot of people who are on campuses all over the U.S. How often do you see people at the Southern Miss campus that are typically not students or teachers or etc.?
Not that often. I mainly just see students.
Mainly see students? Okay. And that's just you going to class and you not doing, not necessarily extracurricular activities, but, because I know you work a lot. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like, how often do you see, like, campus events? So, like, for instance, I know recently they've had a science fair, I believe, and, like, a couple, like, speakers on campus. You see, like, for instance, I know last semester there was a protester that was over by some of the fountains. I mean, like, other than those people, like, how often do you see people? Just not very often?
I see the protests a lot. I didn't see the science fair. I go to football games a lot. And there's tons of people there that not necessarily students or teachers, but like just observers. But yeah, but most of the time you just with the protesters and the games, you're expected to see people not from the school there.
Right. Yeah. So I guess my next question is, do you feel safe on campus? At least fairly safe with the amount of people?
Fairly safe. Like, you don't see much people during the day.
Right.
But when there's not events going down, let's see. But more often than enough, I see a lot of cops driving around the school. So yeah.
Okay, so you feel pretty safe. Okay, that's safe to say. So yeah, tie this into high schools now. Do you think that high schoolers should have police departments such as the university does? Do you feel like that would help protect the school compared to, say, 1 or 2 county or city police officers on campus?
Oh yeah, just like 1 or 2. You don't have to go crazy with it. Just like, one if it's a small enough school.
Right. Okay, so like that's saying instead of having the county police or the city police going on campus, every school system would have its own little police department that would control all of the actual city schools. You know what I mean? So, like, say for instance, you got 4 high schools. You have about 2 officers, I would say, per school that are actually run by the school district versus the actual city police.
Right.
So do you think that'll hurt high schoolers, or do you feel like it would make it feel like it's more of a prison?
I can see where kids would think it'd be more of a prison, but it's not. I think it'd be more safe. They'd be better off because you see today, schools have the metal detectors. No one in this class. They have to be wanded. They have to do all this special stuff just to get inside the class. So with these putting more cops around schools, like just let's put it this way. I came from a high school where we had 1 cop, and everybody knew him. Everybody knew his name, but he made the school safe just because he was around the school 24/7, nonstop, and everybody felt safe, and nothing bad happened. But that's just my viewpoint on it.
Right. Now, so we're going to tie this into gun control now. Do you think that with the... I mean, obviously, I know you believe that there are some aspects of which gun control should be taken away, some that shouldn't be. What do you think in terms of should be put in place instead of taken away?
I believe guns should be taken away altogether. I do believe there should be limits of what people carry. There should be not the gun itself, more like, for example, kind of like the bullets. It's kind of like what you said earlier.
So like the amount per...
Amount, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so like, for instance, I know most hunting rifles nowadays are what, 5, 6 in the chamber?
Right.
6 and 1 in the chamber? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's respectable. Now in terms of the acquisition of the guns, they can be attained by anyone, whether they're legal immigrants or legal people of the U.S. or illegals, through tunnels or being smuggled into the country, being stolen from a car or a house, Do you feel like the police do a pretty decent job as to tracking those down and getting them back? Because I'm not sure the statistic, but I know a lot of people actually don't get their guns back. They just get captured. They get taken, and they're either found and not returned, or they're found and returned. But the amount of found and returned they're so slim, or they're even never seen again. Do you think the police have done so far a good job, or do you think they could do a better job?
I believe they're doing a good job because if somebody wants to get a gun, they're going to get one. It is
right.
There's no way of stopping it. There's you can try to stop it all you want to, but in the end, if they need a gun, there's plenty of ways to do it. Like you said, they have black market. They have just getting it from a friend. There's ways of getting a gun that you cannot control. Not even the cops or anything.
Right. So another thing I was going to add, do you think, going back to the on-campus police, do you think that having a few of those armed guards, do you think it would be better for them to, say, patrol the outside for suspicious activity? Or do you think it would be better for them to patrol inside the actual school and outside the school for suspicious activity? Not only would it... I personally think it would be helpful if they were inside and out, because it would cut down on a lot of, I don't want to say drug use, but effectively drug use.
Yeah. I would say inside and outside. Just the cover all corners. You know what I mean?
Right. So I know, like for instance, my high school back home has started to put a fence up. Not really. It's more of a decorative fence. It's not cheaply. It's pretty cheaply made. But do you think that having and only having entrances like 2 or 3 around the whole school, do you think that would cut down on the amount of suspicious activity outside schools? So, for instance, having people who shouldn't be on campus coming on campus with that fence, do you think that most schools should have that fence? Or what do you think about that?
I think the fence would be a good idea, but that comes back to being like if somebody wants to get on like if somebody really wants to get on campus without being caught, they will find a way. Like they can climb that fence, they can cut through it or something like that. But I also agree with like closing off to like the certain areas. I just don't think a fence would do the best job.
Right. Okay, so going to my big topic now, what the reason this entire podcast is about. Students aren't getting their voices heard nowadays. And for instance, there is a case in West Virginia that there is a group of high school students let me back up further. There was a school shooting at a school in West Virginia, and there's a group of students now that are basically calling lawmakers to call for gun control laws to be put in place. These students are being put down by family members, by pastors in their local church, by other students. They're being bullied by other students because they're saying things like this. And do you think that these students are, I don't want to say being oppressed, but do you think that their voices aren't being heard because they're not wanted to be heard? Now, granted, these students are in a right-wing community, but, I mean, that doesn't mean anything, you know? So do you think that these guys are just being bullied for their opinions? Or do you think that, like, as a whole, students don't really have much of a voice across the whole U.S.?
I think it's just being bullied for their opinions, and just like everybody else. Doesn't matter what your age is people don't like having everybody else having a different opinion from theirs, so they try to change the others' opinions to match theirs, to match the person that's pissed off.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Casey, once again, thank you for your time and all your opinions. Greatly appreciated. And yeah. So like we said, guns are going to be gained control of no matter whether you want them or not. But as we come into my third point, armed guards will just add confusion. So you bring into the account police officers. They obviously will tell students where to go in this sort of event. But for years and years and years, while I was in high school and elementary school and middle school, we were trained to hide in a classroom and not say a word. And that was just that they did that for our safety. You know, they turned out all the lights, they did all these other precautions, and you know, then when an actual school shooting occurs, none of these get put into place. Students just run all over the place, and they're targets, is what they are, for school shooters. However, you know, that brings into the topic, oh, well, yeah, we should bring in the arming of teachers. I disagree with that, simply because you are a teacher, there's a risk, say there's a fight, and you have an armed teacher with a gun going to stop this fight. There's a chance that one of those students in the fight could either grab the gun and pull it on on the teacher or the other student or even the other police officers. But the teacher, say if he or she didn't like the student per se, could even pull the gun on the student, and then it goes downhill from there. And the other thing of that is it could turn deadly real fast, whether it's a student or a teacher getting a gun. So that's why there needs to be a police force on campus. But going back to what I said before the interview, it needs to be hired through the school district or whatnot. So yeah. So going back to also, we talked about how guns could be attained by anyone legally or not illegally. So I mentioned that there could be tunnels underneath the border. So no matter what gun laws you put into place, there's going to be still those people who get the guns illegally. And this, like my buddy said, if people want a gun, they're going to find a way to get a gun. It's not going to matter if you say, oh yeah, you can't have that, or you can only have X amount of ammo, or whatever. No matter what you do, there's still going to be those people who find a way, whether it's through the black market, through smuggling, through even robbing houses or cars, or even taking them off of people, disarming people and taking them from them. Recently, I had a family friend up in Atlanta, Georgia, and their car got broken into, and they lost about $2,000 worth of guns. Now, of course, he had served in the military, so he was trained. He wasn't going to go shoot a school up or whatever, but he had a concealed carry permit, so everything was legal. And the guns got stolen in Atlanta. Their car got stolen. Everything was stolen. Their wallets, their phones, thousands of dollars worth of personal possessions that they had. It was just all gone. And so it's just that simple things can go like that. And not everybody realizes that, guns are pretty easy to get, whether it's illegally or legally through the actual legal process. So it's just one of those things that you have to watch out for. Nowadays, students also aren't being heard. I mentioned earlier a case where there was a school shooting in West Virginia, and in this case, you had kids that were being bullied. And because of this, they didn't feel accepted in their community. And to them, you had families that were not really forcing the weapons on them, but effectively forcing the weapons on them, and they didn't like that. So it's just one of those things with this that you just have to watch out for, and it's sad to see that you have people who are all dead red. Guns are great, and I get that. I love guns. I have many of them. I'm an Eagle Scout, so I was in the Boy Scouts my whole life. I've been around guns. I've been around ammunition. My uncle is an NRA supporter and member, and it's just, I'm around guns a lot. We'll put it at that. And because these students, if you look at it, the city of Parkland, Florida, which is recently in the news a lot because of their school shooting, they're more liberal. And if you look at it at a rally in Washington, they're more liberal. But in this small town in Marshall County, Kentucky, not West Virginia, excuse me, it's just, you see that most of these kids are not really bullied, but they're raised in an environment where it's conservative views, guns are okay. They don't hurt anything. So many people think it's not that the guns, it's the people. And here's the thing, another thing is what I've always been raised by, you know, and I bring this up a lot to people. It's not the guns that kill people. The people kill people with the guns. They use the guns. So restricting them doesn't mean anything, you know. And it's another thing, like Florida did after in the Parkland shooting. They raised the gun law, the age to buy a gun. They raised it. Okay, I get that, reasonable. But at the same time, you have kids who are being forced by the U.S. government to enlist, not to enlist, but to sign up for a mandatory draft if needed. And they don't have the right to, you basically just move, they'll handle guns when they're in the military, no matter how old they are. Whether they're 18 or they're 27. It doesn't matter how old they are, they're going to handle guns. And when it comes down to it, you're taking away that right, basically saying, oh, I can sign up for a draft and handle a gun, but you won't let me buy one when I'm, say, for instance, 18. So it's one of those things that it comes down to it, it's really screwed up, and a lot of people are not looking at the big picture. So my position on the entire thing is that, yes, guns should be legal. However, I believe that there are some aspects to gun control that are needed. For instance, the amount of ammunition held in a rifle. Whether it's an assault rifle, whether it is a hunting rifle, whether it's a handgun, doesn't matter, it needs to be limited. The reason I say this is because you have these guys who are going out and buying 100 round, which is 100 bullets per magazine, 100 round drum mag, which is quite a significant amount. And they're using it again in mass shootings, in school shootings, and you have all these guys. For instance, let me just take this for example. The Parkland, Florida school shooting, the kid went and legally bought a rifle with 3 magazines and shot the school up. He also bought the ammunition. So it's not necessarily a thing of, oh hey, I need to get guns or ammunition or whatever. But it's the capacity that these guns are holding is usually a normal AR-15 magazine can hold. Let me see here. Let me look it up. Okay, so most AR-15 rifle types are sold with 30 round magazines. However, you can get up to 100 rounds. So it's just whatever. There's also another thing by the U.S. Department of Firearms, Tobacco, and Alcohol, or the ATF is what it is. And in their bylaws, it says that bump stocks are legal. Basically, a bump stock is something that all you do is pull the trigger, and using the recoil from the shot, it shoots back, hits a spring, and goes forward. So all you have to really do is just hold the trigger down, and it shoots. And it basically transfers the weapon from a semi-automatic rifle, which is what is sold, to an automatic rifle. And that's what many people are judging that on, is that, oh yeah, these are bump stocks. They need to be outlawed. And I agree with that. There shouldn't be a thing as a bump stock. However, sadly there is, and that is what most people are using to shoot with. And it's one of those things that when it comes down to it, there shouldn't be this thing. So there's a lot of aspects to gun control that I can't even begin to decipher. But those are my 5 points that I wanted to make. Oh wait, no. Shit. I'm kind of jumping around here with my points. I'll read them out real quick. So my first point is students feel as if school has become a prison and not a place of learning. My second point is university and high schools have access to by the public, which means anyone can gain access to it. Point number 3, armed guards will just add confusion. Point number 4, guns can be attained by anyone legally and illegally. And my 5th point is adults don't allow the voice that students have to give, such as any advice on how they feel about schools, like the current policy and on school protection, that would help make them feel more as a learning place versus a prison. So I'll go into detail on my second point. It's basically recently Hattiesburg with 2 campuses. You have William and Carey University as well as Southern Miss. They usually, I know at Southern Miss, I don't know about William and Carey, they usually have a lot of public forums. And I know recently we had the guy who discovered the Titanic was there giving a speech or a forum. But we also had a high school science fair. So both of these will add to the total quote-unquote population, if you will, of the campus at the time. And, these students don't know these kids coming on campus. We don't, or these kids coming on campus, or these adults coming on campus. So who's to say that, you could have a group of individuals that say, oh yeah, we're with the science fair. But in reality, they're there to shoot the school up or kill. And so it's hard to say about that. But, I mean, like I said, you just don't know what's coming. And it's hard to tell what's coming, especially with these events like this. And I'm not calling for Southern Miss or any other campuses, college campuses across the U.S. to not do this, because this is a great opportunity for students, for high school students, to see what it's like to, or even middle school students, to be like, oh, this is what college is like. So they get to kind of experience what it's like in college. But at the same time, they don't. So it's one of those things that you just have to judge based off of not really past experiences, but you can't really predict it either. It's just one of those things that could happen. So you never know at any point. But that's all we have time for today. I'm about 30 minutes in. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your time. If you have any questions, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter, and you can DM me, and we can set up an interview or whatnot, and we can go from there. So thank you for your time again, and have a great day.